Alright, here we go. So we're setting off from the uni gates just after 6:30 a.m. This is Christian rolling up to behind the camera, aka Chili. The camera is on Charlie's bike. Charlie is the one that is pacing, he's on the front. He saw my time on Strava and said, do you want me to pace you after my solo effort? My solo effort was 34:37, and then he said, yeah, do you want to get paced? And I said, yep, that'd be awesome, I'd love that. So Christian's kind of just moved off to the side, and I thought, alright, no one wants to sit on Charlie's wheel, I will jump on, and then that way if anybody does fade behind Charlie, then I won't have to do big watts to get back on, basically. So I was happy with that. I did also notice about now that the GoPro was on. I saw it flashing and I thought, alright, get your game face on. Gotta make this look good. Gotta not try and drop, basically. There's added pressure having the GoPro on. So this is not the segment. The segment has not started yet. As you can see, it's only at 1% gradient. It does kind of feel like it does start going up about now. But yeah, it's still quite flat. So sun beaming through the trees. Perfect weather. Absolutely ideal for something like this. So we're coming up to where the monks are and also where the taxis tend to hang out, which is just before the segment starts. I will point it out when we do go across the start line. Almost there. There's the taxis I was mentioning and the monks. And we're about to go under the archway, which is the start of the segment. There it is, right there. And it's on. Gradient kicks up quite quickly, and so do the watts. 400s, always nice to see 400s. Another local rider off to the side there. And there are quite a few people in the bunch. Behind me is Jason and Hayden and a couple of other friends. Anna's there, Tori's there, and a couple of others that I don't know too well. The idea was that anyone could come along. It was just posted on the group that we're aiming for 33 minutes. Even, yeah, aiming for 33 was going to be a tough ask for me on somebody's wheel, having done 34, 37 solo. But I was up for the challenge. I love doing this kind of thing. I don't know why. Some people really don't look forward to it, but I certainly love it. And my cadence, ideally for a ride like this, I like to hold 100 when I'm going all out. Then that just seems to be my kind of cadence, basically. And the watts for my previous effort at 34, 37 solo was similar conditions to this, and also I did 360 average. So if I was to hold that on someone's wheel, then chances are I was going to go quicker. And certainly the first half looks very promising. I'm seeing, yeah, 380s, 390s, 400s, always good. The first half of Doi Suthep definitely feels harder to me, even though there is some slightly kind of quicker sections like we're on now. There we go, 22k an hour, 23k an hour, 24, 25. Yeah, it still feels harder at the start, but as you can see, speed is decent. So this climb, I think, is just awesome because it doesn't have any corners that are exactly the same. They're all slightly different. The gradient's always different as well. It's always changing between kind of, you know, like a flattish section and then up to kind of 8%, basically. The average of Doi Suthep is 6%, so it's not super steep, but it is long. It's 10.7, thereabouts. So yeah, it's not just a smash climb, it's a more kind of sit and hold the power kind of climb. The fastest time up here is 25:20, I believe, by this absolute machine. 25 minutes up here is just insane. Just insane. So as you can see, there are, yeah, it's a decent kind of group. I think we've got about 7 or 8 people. But I wasn't focusing on that. I didn't even really know who was hanging on and for how long. Basically, I was just dead focused on sticking to as close as I can to Charlie's wheel, and then that way I'll get the maximum effect of the draft. Most of the times of people that I know have gone up here have been on someone else's wheel. You know, you still have to do the effort. If your legs crap out, and you fade, then you're not going to get a good time. Drafting definitely helps a little bit, but I don't reckon it's massive up this kind of climb. So the watts are quite good. 360, 370 tends to be what's showing up most of the time, which is ideal. Another local rider there, just cruising up. So you can see by the pace that it is quite quick. Certainly if you're aiming for low 30s, or lower 30s I should say, then it looks quite decent compared to other people that are just cruising up. So as I was saying before, a lot of the corners they look similar, but they're all slightly different and they're all unique. And I've been up this climb 51 times now, so I know it quite well. And like I said before, I just really enjoy it. It's really nice. So on TT, if it's like this, I would love to just ride bibs only, but we're meant to be having our shoulders covered, and that's why you can see my zip is slightly undone. Jason's just coming alongside us now, saying that we need to move over a bit because there's a scooter passing. But yeah, still on our side of the road. So you can cut the corners a little bit, but obviously, going early is good because there's less traffic, and that's kind of ideal. Certainly when the bunch gets smaller, it's easier to kind of manage that, but when you got 7 or 8 riders, then you're stretched out over the course of, I don't know, what's that, probably good like 15 meters or so. So these kind of sections where it's a little bit flatter, I tend to drop the power a little. I find it harder to hold. I like the resistance of a climb, or I like the steeper resistance, and I find that's easier to hold the power. So as I said before, we can cut the corners so long as you can not hear any cars coming up and that sort of thing. And then it does save time if you're doing it on each of the corners. Doi Suthep, this climb is so awesome too because we do have 2 full lanes the whole way up, which is just awesome. It means that you can pretty much have a whole lane, because as you can see there's not a whole lot of traffic at this time of morning, which is very cool. Cadence, often sitting well above 100, and I think it averaged out to be just over 100. I will put a screenshot of my stats for the climb and that day this day basically. 350s, still decent watts. Coming up to this corner here, it does kind of smoothen off, flatten off, and a bit harder to hold the power, but just trying to stick very close to Charlie's wheel. So Charlie, only 19 I believe, his age, and is just an absolute machine. The power the pacing I should say, is very, very smooth. He knew to back it off he knows exactly when the steep bits are. He's ridden up this climb a lot too, and I've ridden with other people who pace, and Charlie was very smooth, which is awesome because it means that you can kind of manage how bad your legs are feeling and hopefully get to the top in good shape and smash out the effort. So 360s, still decent watts, cadence, all looking good. I know at this point I was still feeling quite confident and quite good. There wasn't any thoughts of dropping at this stage or just calling it quits. There's none of that kind of thought at all. Certainly when I'm into about halfway of an effort, I won't back out. Even if you do fade towards the top, I'll definitely keep what power you can on, basically, and still come away with a good time, I think. So again, slightly flatter section, watts drop a little bit, and just harder to keep the power down, basically, keep those high numbers. So 400s, nice to see. The odd 400. Jason behind me is a machine also. He's riding to triathlon like myself, and he's got a race coming up. Wish him the best of luck with that. And he's done a low 31. I remember talking to him a few days prior to this, and he was saying that he was going to try and go for a sub 30 at the end of the year. That'd be awesome if he can do that. because there aren't many people under 30 minutes up this climb, and if you do so, then you'll get onto the first page on Strava, so the top 25 people, which would be amazing. So Christian off to the side now. I think he said that he had been to the gym the day before. Like I said before, I wasn't sure when people had dropped and when people had faded, but it looked like he had had enough. I think we see him kind of cruising out the back, because if you go into the gym the day before, then your legs are going to be sore. Yeah, he's out the back there. So he's done 34.56, I think it was, solo. So he's obviously a very similar ability, but some days you just aren't feeling it, or the legs just aren't having it. And yeah, you can try and force it all you want, but if the legs aren't going to perform, then it's over basically. So Hayden, you'll see him later in the video, but you can kind of just see him out the back there. There he is with the yellow, similar color to my jersey. He's done 32 minutes flat up here, so it's also a relatively an easier effort for him. He's a ex-racer also, so he does a good time up here. He could probably go quicker than that, I'd say, judging by how relaxed he was at the top of this climb today. But yeah, I look out for them on Strava, see what they're up to, and see when they're doing TT efforts and stuff. I'm always kind of interested in seeing what other people are up to and how they're going. So this section here is one of the straighter sections. It's not super steep here, but yeah, just focusing on sticking right with Charlie, and you don't really need to cut the corner all that much here, because you're not going to save a whole lot. So if cars are coming, then they can get past, no worries. But yeah, as you can see, it's slightly straighter. There's this section and one coming up in just a few corners, which are the straighter sections, and you can get decent speed up on the way down when you're rolling down. Always nice with this climb too, coming down, is you can pretty much, I think there's one section if you carry enough speed into it, and then you can actually not pedal the whole way down, which is quite cool. 10k plus of downhill is nice. Little pinch here at 8%, so as I mentioned earlier, it does get up to kind of, well, between 2 to kind of 8%, but averaging out at 6, so also yeah, slightly lower watts when it's flattening out like it is now, and back up. 360, 370, still going strong. I know how I was feeling about now, and I was still feeling quite good. Initially, if you're holding the ideal kind of watts, then it should feel, I'd say, a little bit easier at the start, and then just gradually get harder and harder until you can almost not hold it at the top, basically. And that's pretty much what happened on this day. So I think there's still a few other people here. Still not quite at the halfway mark, still a bit to go. Yeah, a few more bends until we're onto the other straighter part. Looks like some other people are about to be kind of detached. You kind of start moving off to the side and stuff, and thinking, I can't do it or whatever, and then out you go basically. But I think there might be one or two more people. As I mentioned earlier, yeah, I know there's still a few people there, so it's good. 350 on the power, 330, 100 plus cadence. Cadence for me now, having ridden the amount that I have, I find easier to just keep spinning and not really have to look at cadence. I wasn't even really looking at my Garmin as well the whole time, because you've got someone else to pace you, so it is you're able to spend more energy on trying to keep the legs moving and trying to keep the power down without having to look at your Garmin and adjust and see if you're going too hard. Or the Garmin is awesome, power meter's awesome, because if you don't have someone to pace, which is quite often the case, then that's the next best thing. But yeah, not having to focus on holding the numbers just makes it that much easier. Holding onto one wheel is just, certainly easier. So another faster section, 23k an hour, and this is, yeah, it's all uphill, and I think it's quite cool. I've never really kind of seen myself riding uphill at this speed because I've never really done this kind of, I've done similar times, but I haven't gone as fast as I did today, and that's exciting. I'm currently 28 and getting quicker, which is cool. And I think cycling is one of those sports where you can kind of still do decent at your 30s or in your 30s and even mid 30s. So people like Alejandro Valverde and older riders just still seem to keep getting better and better, and that's exciting. Most sports you kind of peak at in your 20s and then it's all over, but cycling doesn't tend to be one of those sports, which is quite cool. So we're on the other straighter section now. What's still decent, even though it's, yeah, slightly less gradient, which is cool. I know, yeah, I was still feeling strong. I knew where halfway was, and I said to myself I want to be up around halfway before I do start to fade or do start to drop. Like I said, with the GoPro on and all that. You want to try and make it look good. You don't want to be out the back and suffering at halfway, especially when you know that you've done similar watts. I know that I've done this effort basically the week before, so I had a full rest day the day before, and I find that's the best for me. A full rest day, just completely off the bike, completely off running. Or if I want to do a bike effort, then yeah, I'm not going to be running the day before, and having a rest day I find just gives the body time to chill out basically. And yeah, some people like to do a bit of cycling the day before. I mean, maybe, you know, just cruise down to the shops or the markets or something like that would be alright, but this is just my way of doing it. Charlie, I remember talking to him about it, and he was saying that he could just go out and do full efforts, just max efforts day after day, and obviously when you're at, you know, sub 30 level or 28 minutes, mid 28s up this climb, then yeah, I don't even know. I can't even speak for what that would be like. I'd love to get to that stage get to that stage one day, and then maybe I could do the same of just day after day repeating max efforts. But for now, full rest day gives me the results that I want the next day. And here we go again, speeds up. It really does look quite cool and quite quick, which is cool to see. Lower watts when the speed's up. Like I said, I definitely find it harder to hold the watts on the flat. And Charlie, no problems, he can really get me on the flats going up this way, as you'll see coming up shortly. So now we're down to just 4 of us. There's Charlie pacing, me, and then Jason and Hayden. The others have all said that's enough for today. And fair enough, you know, if you're not doing kind of 35 minutes up this climb, then aiming for 33 is unrealistic. I reckon unless you've done absolutely psycho training for a whole year, then realistically you're not really going to take more than 2 minutes off at a time per year, I would say. I've done this, like I said, 50 times. I've been here the last 3 years prior to this at a similar time of year, and my original time in 2015 was 40:32, I think it was. So yeah, I do, on this effort, get down to 34:09. And yeah, 6 minutes in, what's that, 4 years. So as you can see now, back to the present time, I am dropping the wheel slightly, so you can see there's quite a bit of a gap. I wave through. I thought Christian was still there, and I thought that because I'm fading that someone else would want to pull through. I didn't even really realise, and then yeah, I see that it's Jason, and he's already done this time, so you know, his motivation, I guess, for being here is maybe helping out, and also just rolling with a quickish bunch. You know, it's not far off his best time. It's definitely easier for him doing this pace, but there's something about rolling with a TT bunch. It's really cool, feeding off each other, and I think you definitely go quicker when you've got mates around you, even if they're not talking to you. I think he said a couple of words to me and stuff, but you know, I wasn't really focused on talking. I was just focused on trying to keep the effort and yeah, time or effort on talking and doing other stuff is just taking away from the legs. So for, you know, 35 minutes or less, you just want to be focused on giving the legs all the energy that they can get. And we are coming up to the viewpoint. The viewpoint is going to be on your right, looking at the screen, and it looks down to Chiang Mai. Here we go, the viewpoint on the right here. And this is where I think halfway is roughly, that's where most people think it is. I think it's actually slightly further back down the hill, but yeah, like I said, the first half tends to feel harder. We're coming up to one of the hairpins now. A lot of those strips have been put on the uphill in Doi Suthep, on Doi Suthep. They didn't used to be there in previous years, but yeah, as you can see, I'm definitely hurting. I should be on Charlie's wheel. These two guys, Jason and Hayden, here's Hayden now. Like I said, he's got a similar coloured jersey, on one half at least. And for them, it's not as much of a hard effort as it is for me. He's making it look easy, Hayden. Looks like he's cruising. As you can see, my power's still decent, but it's not 360, 370. Oh, actually, it was coming up 400. This is a steeper section, actually, so that'll be the reason for that. But it's not sustainable holding 400. Yeah, there's no way I could hold 400 to the top, or even kind of 380, 370, because it's starting to hurt. Jason's kind of towing me back on, which is nice. We're only doing 16, 17k now, so it's not. It's definitely a bit of a help and more of a psychological help, I think. But yeah, it makes it feel like you're kind of catching back onto the wheel and catching back up to where you should be. I like riding in smaller bunches like this. I reckon kind of 5 people, or even 3 to 5 people is really nice. You can kind of know where everybody is. You don't have to be too kind of particular about your position, because everyone's kind of it's smaller bunches, I think, tend to kind of ride quicker. That probably doesn't make any sense, but if you're in a smaller bunch, chances are you'll be going quicker, whereas a big bunch is kind of a bit more, you have to kind of worry about your position. Maybe you're riding 2 abreast, etc. But yeah, 3 to 5 people, single file, I like that. Here we go, Watts now down to under 300. Looking a bit more sad now. Cadence still good. Like I said, cadence doesn't tend to be a problem, but yeah, holding the Watts into the second half of a long climb starts to become tough. So you can see I changed my hand position a little bit to the tops and then back to the hoods. Charlie, super smooth on the pacing. I trust him that he's going to ride smooth, and he's not going to do anything erratic basically or anything. And oftentimes if I change to the tops, I will kind of just drop back a little bit so that you can grab the brakes if you need to. But yeah, certain people are good or very good riders, and it doesn't tend to be a problem. This top section of Doi Suthep I like better. It's more shaded, and also it's slightly flatter. It's still uphill the whole way, but it is nicer. I just find it's more curvy, and yeah, I just enjoy it more. But it's cool, this climb. I love the whole thing. It's super smooth. The roads are amazing. Just that beautiful soft, well, not soft, but smooth. Smooth's the word I was looking for. Smooth tarmac. They don't use that chip seal. And yeah, it's good for good times and keeping high speeds. It's ideal. Coming down as well, it's very smooth. There's not there's a few little bumps and stuff, but nothing major, no crazy potholes or anything. So Watt's still mostly above 300, 330-ish, which is decent for it being less of a gradient now. 360s, 370, nice. And we're getting closer to the 3k to go. It's coming up in a few more bends. There are a few other sharp corners coming up one or two of them, Charlie goes round quite tight. I will point it out when it's coming up. But me being a taller, heavier rider, currently at 89, 90 kilos, always kind of fluctuate between that. But yeah, I can't match him for tight cornering, and you'll see that coming up shortly. But they're beautiful and shaded, this upper part, and that definitely helps when you're pretty well cooked, you know, or on the way to being cooked. And I mean, the sun's nice, but if you want a good effort, you want to keep the body temperature nice and cool, and you don't want to be too hot basically, because it's just going to take away from the best time that you can get. As I mentioned earlier, yeah, I would definitely like to you know, try and make the most of having no jersey, but we're not allowed to do it up here. So that was that corner I was mentioning. As you can see, I went around it quite wide, got to standing, and got back onto his wheel, but he just kind of snapped around that corner. And he's a good bike handler, very good bike handler, Charlie, and that was certainly evident at that stage. I was like, whoa, damn, that was nice tight cornering, man. But as you can see, it didn't make all that much difference though, because I can maintain the speed, swing around wide. So we're coming up to another kind of U-turn corner almost, and there's a flatter section before it pinches up again. This is that flatter section. You'll see the gradient start to drop off a little bit. Certainly coming up to the 3K mark, there was no way I was going to back off, and no way I was going to call it quits at this stage. It'd be crazy to get this deep into a TT and then want to bail out. So Charlie just, yeah, he's been riding in the saddle the whole time, and finally, how far are we in? We're quite far in, and he's just doing a little bit of standing, which is fine. I think it's nice, you know, getting standing and just mixing it up a little bit. It's certainly nice to stretch the legs. Sometimes it feels like you're going to benefit from doing so. Other times you stand up and think, nah, I'm done. Need to sit back down. This is slightly, it's only a short section, but it does go up a little bit, 8%, there we go. The observatory is coming up on your right, or the driveway to it. And then we have the one and only downhill section, which you do have to change into the big ring for. This is the driveway there to the observatory. And just coming over the top here, you'll see that it does flatten off, and it's almost into the big ring now. Slight downhill section, we got up to about 38k an hour. I was just trying to hold any power I could. 270, as you can see, it's well under 300, but keeping the power on, back to 280, is the aim of the game, because you can really kind of drop off to almost nothing power-wise and, you know, lose time. So if you want to make the most of that section, you've got to kind of just get aero, but also keep the power down, even though it's a slight downhill, and it's not really feel like what you want to do. You want to kind of just relax, but no, there's no relaxing on an effort like this. So back into the small ring, it does go back up. So here we are, 3, 4, 5%. As you can see by my face, I'm definitely struggling now. But back on Charlie's wheel, and just psychologically, that makes you feel good. It makes you feel like you're back where you should be. The watts back up to decent 300s. Cadence well above 100 still. As I mentioned earlier, no problems with that. And yeah, we're nearing probably about 2k to go, almost 2k to go. There are 2 little pinches before we get to the U-turn, and the most gnarly part, or the gnarliest, steepest part of the climb. And these 2 little pinches are coming up. You'll see the gradient go up very shortly. And I find that it's just best to just settle in, keep the cadence high, even if you don't get the watts you want. You can really kind of blow at a stage like this when it does ramp up. So I think you want to look at the overall time rather than perhaps, you know, just a 100-meter section or 100 and whatever 50-meter section. As I mentioned, yeah, it does ramp up a little bit here, 8%, 9%. It's only for a short period, but 10% even, yeah. And yeah, I find you can really cook yourself on these sections if you want to try and hold the same watts as what you were holding before. So I find it best to just, as I mentioned, settle in, get over the worst of it, and then press on. So cadence flattening, no, not cadence, gradient flattening out again. And there is another one of those pinches at the second viewpoint, which is coming up in just a few bends. And the viewpoint is on the left side as you're looking at the screen. So it's around one more corner, and then we go up again. So Jason just towing me back basically, and making it, getting me back to Charlie's wheel where I should be. But yeah, I was definitely suffering now, definitely hurting. But again, still not wanting to even think about giving it up. Especially rolling with these guys. I know these guys are fit and strong, and you know, if I was to bail out now, then that would just be lame. So another tie rider there. And here is that other section. You can see the gradient going up again. What does it get to? 9%, 10%, yeah. Viewpoint is coming up on our left, as I mentioned. And Hayden kind of comes around now, and like I said, he's done 32, so he's strong. And he does some Instagramming. You might think, oh, you know, just casual effort doing some Instagramming, but if your legs can handle it, then why not, you know? This is the viewpoint, as I mentioned. You can't really see a whole lot. GoPro's not really pointing in the right direction, but it is an awesome view. And that signifies, yeah, that there's only one more nasty bit to go, which is the last kind of 300 to 400 meters, basically. Dropping the wheel again. So definitely struggling at this stage. You can see that anytime that I drop the wheel, yeah. I'm not sure if Charlie knew that I was doing so, or whether he was pacing exactly to what we should have been. I think he definitely knew that I was fading and he needed to back it off maybe 10 watts or something. I don't know. I need to talk to him actually and ask him what he did basically. Because yeah, we weren't on for 33. It wasn't going to happen today. I mentioned earlier that yeah, that was going to be a big ask, dropping a minute and a half on someone's wheel. Certainly you'd take a big chunk out of it, but when you're at this stage, it's not going to be a minute and a half, I don't think. We are coming up to the waterfall. The waterfall is going to be on the right, coming up shortly. The watt's looking quite a bit more sad now, 300-ish, under 300. Waterfall is just on the right very shortly. And the waterfall means that you're almost at the top basically. I think we're well within 1k to go. And the hardest bit is yet to come, where you can lose a lot of time or gain a lot of time depending on how you're feeling. I think you can tell by my face I'm definitely struggling. And yep, just on the right there is the waterfall. So we're almost there, almost at the hairpin, which does kind of flatten out just slightly, but then you're into kind of 15+% for the remainder basically. And I just take the inside line. I know that no one's behind, I can hear there's no cars, no scooters, and I'm right on the yellows, which is all good because there's no one else around. And then, as I mentioned, it does flatten off just here briefly, and then it's just savage gradient till the top basically. So I dump about 3 gears here. You see I kind of really up the cadence briefly, and then 400 plus. This part is about as hard as it gets, because if you've got anything left then you can gain some time, but if you're cooked, then you're going to lose a whole lot of time. 16%, 14, 13. It's tough now. And this is, yeah, as I mentioned, you can gain or lose a whole lot here. I was just focusing on, I knew that the gradient is quite tough, so it's easier for me to hold the watts, but you know, being this deep into an effort, it's quite tough. 350, and I'm just going for the inside line. Again, I can hear that there's no cars or anything coming, so being closer to the line means there's just less pedal strokes to the top, and I always save a little bit for the top. Jason starts actually yelling at me and just giving me motivation, which I find really good. I find it awesome when someone's like, go, go, just smash it. So you can see decent watts now. Perhaps I should have pushed a little bit more before, but yeah, it's, you know, you do what you can do, and like I said, I save a little bit for the top.
Let's go! Go, Josh, go!
Good motivation, I love it. And as you can see, decent watts to finish. Always nice to finish strong. 600s, 650. And we're almost at the top. Segment's about to finish. 700s even. Awesome. I love seeing that at the top. And that's us done. That's me done. 34:09 was the time. Big thanks to Charlie for pacing and filming. It was awesome. I didn't even know I was going to get the footage. So thank you very much to him. There will be a link in the description for his channel. Go and check out his channel. He's got heaps of cycling stuff. And the travel stats will be up.